Are you really wanting to build up your self-confidence and you're wondering, what are some good materials out there that's really going to enable me to do that? Well, today I'm going to share my top 5 favorite books that have helped me with my self-confidence and my takeaways from them. And if you stay right until the end, I'm going to share something special with you then as well. Now, just before we dive into today's episode, if you want to make sure you're up to date with all the episodes so you can really boost your confidence and self esteem and have an extra bit of insight and a tip a week, well, just click in the link in the show notes below to make sure you're up to speed so you can really boost your self confidence. Now, let's talk about my books, the 5 favorite books. Now, I remember getting into personal growth, and it was from a point of my life was a bit of a challenge. I remember 2019, I had a couple of dating relationship setbacks. I had some work case things really impacting on my self confidence. I wasn't great, and I sort of got into a little bit of mentoring with a coach, and then she introduced me in actually my writing. I was writing fiction at the time, and then actually she introduced me into this whole personal growth world, and I loved it. And then I started finding all these books, and I never really liked reading books when I was younger. It was like, I mean, I didn't even really take in the Harry Potter books. I just preferred watching the films. But when I started reading personal growth books, I absolutely loved it. And then I read like 50 in 2020. And this is someone who not even probably read half of that for his entire life before then. It was it was crazy. I just loved it. And then I started really focusing on self-esteem and confidence. I started to notice like themes coming up in the books, and I liked reading books about like mindset, how I get in a really good state. And this really helped me get out of some of these challenging situations I was in when my self-talk was really bad. I was really struggling. Now, the thing is, I started to notice lots of people were challenged with self esteem and confidence. And that's why I went into the coaching space in this area. That's why my podcast started being on that. So that's why I wanted to share my top 5 books with you today. Now, I want to ask you this. If you're in that situation where you're consuming negative information, you're getting exhausted by listening to people who put you down, or maybe listening to material that doesn't make you feel good, or reading material that doesn't make you feel good, how's that helping you? Because if you're anything like me, it didn't do me any favors. So that's why I really want to reinforce that the quality of information you take in is so significant, because I was taking in bad information a lot. And actually getting into some of these books, some of these materials really helped me change my life. And the most important thing was actually implementing them. Now, when I read a book, I really make sure that I have actions listed from it. I'm a bit of a system kind of guy. Like I'll learn something and I'll make it into a system. Not everything I listen to, because obviously that would be impossible. I couldn't implement every single line of every single book that I read, but I like to take things and make them into action. So let's dive in to my top 5 favorite books and a kind of a key takeaway from each of these on self-confidence. The first one is a book called Higher Status by a guy called Jason Capital. And actually, to be honest, I did start reading that. I think I started reading that in 20 late 2017, I think actually. And it was I really came back and revisited it like in 2020. I came across it when a mate recommended it. And to be honest, if I hold my hands up, there is a little bit about how you act with girls in there. And one of my mates had read it and he was implementing it, right? But there's a lot in there about how you can into your day-to-day social settings in like whatever personal, professional capacity and really feel more confident, have a lot more charisma and feel great about yourself. And what it talks about a lot is different things like your environment, who you're hanging out with, what you're wearing, and actually your physiology and your actions, and actually changing your actions and some of the things you do can change your way of thinking when you start getting results. Now, I actually believe that it's in parallel with your thoughts, But this actually talks about the power of actually taking some small things and you do day to day to day, and you master them, and that'll build your confidence. So that's my key takeaway from that. Okay, my second book I want to mention is a book called From the Core by John Wineland. And this is actually a book about it's about like masculinity, and there's all these kind of discussions about what masculinity is. And just because you're a guy doesn't mean you're necessarily masculine, because a lot of women can be like masculine, or a lot of guys could be feminine, and or whatever gender you identify as. But this talks about like masculinity in men, this book in particular. So obviously it had me like really interested, because sometimes I need to feel into more of the feminine energy in me, because I'm dominant, like task orientated. So the feminine side of feeling the emotions and actually connecting with that is something I'm still working on. This book though talks about how you can really practice really healthy masculinity in presence and grounding yourself. And what it talks about a lot is actually breathing into the body, breathing into the heart, which has really, really helped me, because I've been someone who's been so driven by the mind, just thinking logically, planning 5 steps ahead. So this really makes you feel more grounded and allows you to regulate your nervous system, so you're more calmer, and therefore you feel more confidence, and you've got more of a sense of presence and more connection with you. So actually how important breathing is. The next one is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And this talks about actually making small daily habit changes. And why did that really help me with my confidence? Well, the book really talks about actually understanding what you want. I think all the great people I follow always talk about being clear on what you want rather than what you don't want. But you don't get so attached to like these goals and step-by-step plan. It's more about, what are you doing every single day in order to hit that? And all you're doing is focusing on what you're doing every single day. So, for example, you want to write a book, and you're like, oh, I've never written a book, and then you lack the confidence to write. The book would encourage you to take smaller habits, like maybe even writing 50 to 100 words a day. Now, I obviously built up a bit more from that over the time I was writing. But what it allows you to do is actually just take small daily habits, and that builds a lot of confidence within yourself. In fact, talking about it right now, I want to read that book again. It's quite a big book. It's not the biggest book I read. It's about 300 odd pages or so, but it's a great book. The next book I want to mention is from one of my mentors, and then the fifth one's also from another one of my mentors, The Inside Track by Peter Sage. This is about Peter when he goes to he got sent to prison for 6 months. He was a bit unfortunate. He didn't kidnap anyone. He didn't kill anyone. He didn't hurt anyone. He was just caught on the wrong end of a court deal against a big company, basically, and therefore I can't remember the exact details, but anyway, he got sent to prison. Even though he didn't really do much wrong, but I won't go into the whole politics of that. Anyway, he got sent to prison, and he was happy about it. Like, he wasn't happy about going to prison, but he went in there with this real strong, like, I'm excited to go in there and make a change. And the book's all about like how many people would go to, I've obviously never been to prison, but how many people go into prison being excited? Probably not, probably really, really low, right? And what it shows is actually the importance of how you think in certain ways, the way you see things. And actually that book allowed me to actually start putting things in different perspectives, start capturing the smallest like wins or things that are showing up in life. And what that did, even if I just, someone's said, oh, I just bought you a coffee, or someone's sent me someone unexpectedly sent me a coffee voucher for my favorite coffee shop, like the other day, and for my birthday. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So just even catching those just really builds your confidence into life as well. My next book is one of my other mentors, like I said. Well, this is the fifth one, Dare to Be Magnificent by Dr. Joseph McClendon. And this really, the takeaway I got from this is that actually you can do the simplest thing to change your psychology. He talks about like poems in the book. He talks about actually being able to do self-talk in front of the mirror. He talks about a great exercise that I've referenced on this podcast before, where every day for 5 minutes for at least a week, you're going to write down all the great things about you that you've achieved in the last day, in the last week, in the last month, in your lifetime, whichever one you can choose, or a mixture of all of those. So he gives you some very simple exercises to change your psychology, and your psychology will impact on your mindset. So those are my top 5 favorite books on self-confidence. Now I'm going to give you an extra one that I'm going to recommend as well. Just before that, I want to mention this. If you never want to miss an episode, as I kind of touched on earlier, make sure you join the newsletter link below, where I'll be giving you a weekly insight as well into growing your self-confidence, self-esteem, and mindset. Now, my bonus book that I want to share with you is actually my book, the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset book. You can find it on Amazon in paperback, Audible, so audiobook, and electronic as well, electronic version. And what I really do in that book, just to mention, is I share a story. I share a little bit of like theory and logic around each thing. And then I give you some actionable steps, which I think is really, I did that because that's what I really like. And actually, some of the books I mentioned above, particularly Dr. Joseph McClendon's one, it's all about giving you actionable steps. So that's something I'd recommend you check out as well. Okay, so I appreciate you for being here. You're improving other people's lives by being the best you. And remember, you are in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.